Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome to an instant race reaction for the 2019 Italian Grand Prix, and probably one of the most hyped up Italian Grand Prix you'll see in a long, long while because of the Tifosi going absolutely berserk for Charles Leclerc, winning his second win in Formula 1, back-to-back wins, and winning at Monza in a Ferrari. Tom, it doesn't get any more special than that for a Ferrari driver, does it?
It absolutely doesn't. Absolutely insane race from Charles Leclerc, and this time he did it all on his own and took the pressure. He literally absorbed it like a sponge, just held those Mercedes behind, and this one was a lot sweeter than last weekend, and I'm glad that he actually got this one to like genuinely properly celebrate and kind of let his emotions out, because last weekend it was
you can tell now on
the radio
cool down he basically blew out the microphone, basically like the microphone started clipping because he was shouting so loud.
Definitely, it's one of the top 5 radios of all time, I think, like celebration like radios after the race. That was something else. That was really, really cool to see, though. Absolutely happy, just chuff for him.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, like you said, the way he controlled that race, soaked up the pressure from Hamilton. Obviously, a little bit on fine margins with the defence on Hamilton, but like I think the commentators were saying on Sky, it was great to see a youngster like that kind of just throw out the caution to the wind, don't care about being a bit too cautious because he doesn't want to do anything wrong, just try and go flat out as possible. At the end of the day, it all worked out for him. Obviously, he had both Mercedes to try and defend against because it was just one Ferrari up there, unfortunately, for Sebastian Vettel. We'll get to him in a bit, but it just showed even more so that the fact he had to battle too. And we talked about this before, I think, Tom, previewing the Italian Grand Prix, about that whole dynamic from last year when Raikkonen had to be alone to defend against the two Mercs, and he just couldn't do it. Whereas this time around, the way the Ferrari's geared with the straight line, but also just the clever driving from Leclerc, making sure he probably had enough electrical deployment at the end of each straight, the parabolica especially, just a great drive for him.
I've got to give him a lot of credit, Ferrari, for the second race in a row. The hard tyre is the one I would have gone for. It was the right call. Last year, they matched Mercedes on tyres and they suffered from it. So they they corrected that mistake. But also, the fact that Vettel had what happened to him, he won on the hards before, so they could see if he had good pace or not and if it was worth the risk. So they obviously saw, looking at the data from Vettel, that it was an okay tyre, it was running pretty well. And obviously looking at last year's race, looking at the DNF, or not DNF, sorry, the tyres going off of Raikkonen's car at the rear, they were thinking to themselves, you know what, is it worth maybe taking that gamble? And it paid off at the end. I think it was the right call. And ultimately, that hard tyre, like Martin Brundle said on commentary, that tyre can go until Singapore. So it was worth the gamble, I think, and it paid off. That was the right strategy call because they could have the tyres to fight every single lap and get that exit out of parabolic, like you said, to constantly keep them behind, which is really, really good. So for me, in my opinion, that was a spot-on, perfect strategy call, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, even like, not talking about the tyre wear, just the actual tyre warm in itself was a gamble because you saw there with virtual safety car, when they got back up, it just took so much longer for that hard to actually rubber in and heat up again. So that was the gamble there as well, so not knowing if there's going to be a virtual safety car, they don't know what's going to happen in that race, so they did roll the dice a bit, kind of went with their heads on the pace of Vettel, I guess, and also the lessons learned from last year and also last race at Spa. And yeah, it worked out for them. So I mean, kudos to Ferrari as a team there for getting that right. In terms of Mercedes, I don't really think they could have done much more to it. I think they just tried as hard as they could. They played the two-car strategy of keeping Bottas long, and so even when Hamilton fell off, they allowed Bottas to go out attack. In the end, Hamilton gets only a 2-point deficit to his title lead. So for him, he can't... Yeah, I mean, obviously he's going to be disappointed because that's the kind of racer he is, but, it still doesn't really matter too much for the championship fight for him. And for Bottas, well, he kind of made a bit of a mistake, that commentator's curse. As soon as Crofty was about to say that this is now where he needs to put the pressure on Leclerc, he locked up a little bit and went wide to turn one. So, I mean, apart from that, they didn't really do much wrong there.
No, I think the mistake from Hamilton, that was when I could breathe. I just knew Bottas wasn't going to get near him. Hamilton. No offense, and this isn't to discredit Bottas. This is more to give Hamilton credit. Hamilton's the only driver that I know, and you and me have seen it with our own eyes. He's the only driver, I think, in the entire grid that can follow within a second, constantly and relentlessly for 20, 30 laps in that dirty air window that everyone seems to complain about. But yeah, he can somehow find a way to keep his car constantly 8, 6, 7 tenths behind every single time. And like I said, I think they could have done nothing else there. I think they got it all right. And it was just a case of Ferrari too quick on the straight. Mercedes, you could argue, I think, had the faster car overall. It's just the fact that in racing terms, they couldn't overtake the Ferrari. But over one lap, I think the Mercedes has probably got more pace. They just couldn't get past that Ferrari. And, it is what it is. At the end of the day, let's be realistic here. And I'm not being harsh or negative when I say this, but this could very easily be Ferrari's last win of the entire season. So they had to win today, and the 2 wins on the spin, papers over the cracks of what has been a poor season for them so far. And we go again in Singapore, and it's going to be back to Mercedes versus Red Bull in that one. So Ferrari needed that, definitely, just to paper over the cracks.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if Ferrari had any sort of real challenging pace at Singapore. But let's talk then about, you talked about a bit of a downer. Let's talk about the downer part of this race for Ferrari then. Was Sebastian Vettel spinning again in front of Tifosi at the Italian Grand Prix. And then, it looked very clumsy the way he spun around, but then also Brundle did point out the very thing about, in F1 cars, you can't actually look left and right properly. And just the occasion probably just made him kind of panic a little bit of wanting to spin it around. But it was just a horrendous day, a day to forget, one that might be very hard for him to bounce back from as well, because we've seen in the past when maybe Charles has done better than Vettel in the past, he's still gone up and congratulated him and been quite chirpy, but this time around, head down, went straight past Leclerc, we're back to the motorhome to change out of his overalls. I think this can be tough to come back from, because we talked about this one being the race for him to bounce back from, the springboard to reset the season. It's done the exact opposite.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. I agree. It's a tricky one. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to be quite honest here. I've been trying to not, and I'm still not going to feed the media narrative of the old guard and then the new wonder kid comes along and pushes him out of the seat, because ultimately you can't turn into a bad driver overnight. I know it's been over a year now since you started making the mistakes, but I don't want to push that narrative. Okay, Leclerc's the man now; he's number one. Because at the end of the day, up until this race, Vettel was still ahead in the championship. Considering how bad people want to say he's out of the season he's been. So I think overall, it's hard to say. This one's going to sting, but it's a lose-lose, I think, for Sebastian Vettel in many regards today. I think it's a lose-lose when he's spun. I think if he waits for every car to drive past, he's going to end up at the back. And if he tries to get back onto the track like he did, he's going to end up at the back anyway. So it's a lose-lose in that regard. It's also a lose-lose if he goes up to Leclerc and congratulates him, because people are going to meme the hell out of him saying, no, Vettel congratulating the better driver, or that kind of thing. And it's a lose-lose because he just went back with like a sad face and just left his helmet on, because that's going to show that he's salty. So it's a lose-lose in every way looking for Sebastian Vettel today. It's just one of them ones where he's just going to have to completely forget about it. A shame, because it looked like he was actually doing okay up until that point. He got past Hulkenberg and he was actually within a second. He wasn't actually dropping back like I expected him to. He was actually hanging in within a second of Bottas, and dare I say, could have maybe challenged him. So ultimately a shame. And there's not really much you can say really about Sebastian, really, is there? I think it's just a question of how will his season finish?
He's got to try and, I don't know what he needed, but Singapore next race, it's been usually a happy hunting ground for Vettel, actually, Singapore Grand Prix, so I don't know. He needs to just find something within himself, within the car, to just try and basically see out the season in a much better way than this last race has gone, and generally how the season's gone for him as a whole. But yeah, like you said, Tom, there's not actually a lot more you can say. We've been talking about Vettel for so long now, and there just doesn't seem to be one concrete answer or a silver bullet for him.
It's Canada again. I go back to Canada. I think had he won that, could it be a different?
Could it be different?
There's question marks, but there's two of them specifically. Canada, had he won that, just cleanly, how he should have won that. Let's make no mistake. And I'm not being biased when I say that. He should have won that race. And also yesterday, he gave Leclerc the toe on the first Q3 run. Never got a chance to do his second one. He could have started second, maybe even first. You never know. Instead, he started fourth. Had to get past Hulkenberg and then pushing for Bottas. It's just. A big what if, with Vettel.
There's a lot of what ifs with Sebastian Vettel. But looking down out at the rest of the top 10, then Ricciardo and Hulkenberg, man, Renault must be absolutely shocked. P4 and 5 for them. That car's been mega in the low trim downforce package they've had to do for Spa in Italy. It's going to be a very different story maybe at Singapore when they have to go back to the high downforce setup. But they talked about pre-race actually. The reason why is because in this new configuration for the low drag circuit, their car's actually very comfy in terms of race conditions and quality conditions. So for them, they're going to be over the moon, P4 and 5. Ricardo's going to be laughing at this because for the first time really, his move to Renault, he's comfortably ahead of the Red Bulls.
That I think it's really, really good for him to have that, of course. And overall, Renault, they were good at Spa. They just disappeared on Sunday. But overall, good race pace. They'll have no complaints.
Yeah, and then Alexander Albon, P6 and Red Bull. Obviously, Verstappen had that bit of an issue at the very start of the race, so he's down in P8. He recovered quite well. Still a pretty good drive, actually, considering he had to change the front ring right at the start. Albon, could he done more from where he was? Got to help him traffic. I don't know, really. That Red Bull obviously was never going to go well around here. And then kind of Sergio Perez slipped through the net for me. Didn't really see him too much in P7 there. And then I want to say, Giovinazzi, home race. Points. Obviously, me and you, Tom, talked about the calamity he had at the end of this Belgian Grand Prix. Made up for it this time. P9, points in front of the Italian fans, Italian driver. He's going to be pretty damn happy in this race.
I want to interject, and before you get past Perez too quick, he started 18th. He pit under the VSC and finished 7th. For me, Perez actually had one of the drives of the day, but it kind of really went under the radar. He started 18th place in a racing point. That was an incredible drive from him. And yeah, I agree. Giovinazzi correcting the wrong from Spa in many ways. What he should have done, he did it correctly this weekend. And yeah, fair play to him. He needed that. He'd probably be kicking himself still, knowing he could have had a few more extra points, you know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
total.
definitely,
but again,
definitely.
like Ferrari, the last 2 races, Giovinazzi's been much better, which is good to see. So that's
it's good stuff.
No
that he's
harm
building
in
confidence
his contract negotiations, let's say.
Yeah, for sure. And then the end of the top 10s, Lando Norris and McLaren. Didn't really see too much of him today as well either, because Carlos Sainz retired. Unfortunate for him. And again, kind of having that narrative, McLaren being quite unreliable as of late in this season there. But Kvyat also had an engine explosion there. Didn't see too much of the other fighting. You know, Gasly, Stroll, P11, 12. Then Vettel obviously recovered to P13. Russell, P14. Raikkonen, P15. Grosjean, and then Kubica round out the finishes there. But, I mean, all focus was on that mega top five. And the first time really that, it was a real tense Italian Grand Prix. It wasn't one of those slow burners or just ones that was, you can see how it's going to go. Because I feel like last year, even when Raikkonen was leading, all of us could kind of see the tyres going to go off and Mercedes going to get him. Whereas this race, like you said, Tom, you were on the edge of your seat until Hamilton made the mistake because you just could not tell. And so that made for a really great Italian Grand Prix. And I think that's going to wrap it up for the instant race reaction. We'll delve
6 good races in a row.
Yeah,
or
6. I mean, obviously, Spa was kind of decent. Yeah, so 6 great races in a row for this season. Yeah, it's been a good run. But that's been this instant race reaction for the Italian Grand Prix. If you guys did enjoy it, be sure to smash that like button. Let us know what you thought of the race in the comments below. We'll have a more in-depth podcast reaction to that later on in the week. But till then, guys, hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.